Boom. And then I'm going to record here.
This is the boys. We're spinning off.
This is the unprecedented.
Worse.
We have we don't have the moderating effect of Alanah, so this is just gonna, in 3 seconds, it's gonna be like holding bloody carcasses and yelling like the opening of 2001.
It feels
show's great because you're like
cookie.
adults having a conversation. We're gonna ruin that reputation. We're just gonna be completely.
Exactly.
Does anyone else's Zoom do this weird thing where it just decides to pause, like your internet pauses and goes? Is it just mine?
Pauses, like stop, like it just.
It just did it. Like I have stupid fast internet. No, you're being a dick now, Mike.
It's my favorite play. I couldn't keep it still. I've gotten really good at it in the last
really
few
good.
It's good.
You're not Greg Miller good, but you're getting there.
I mean, you're not Greg Miller good. Like that's,
I'm not Greg Miller good.
Established.
I can't take off my glasses. That's the. I mean, I can. Fuck, wear those things.
It's a solid play.
I've wanted to wear glasses just for that reason. That's why one of the reasons why I miss smoking is because you can. Listen, man, and whenever there's smoke coming out,
doesn't it?
I was going to say it's good business. Yeah, very,
business.
very.
Speaking of good business, you complimenting Greg's taking his glasses off. I saw a sales spike genuinely on the game because of like that 10 minutes on the podcast. It's scary how
really people are like fine.
People
fine.
Like if Troy is buying in on this, then I am in. Let's do this.
I definitely think that you could do. I don't think you need to go like
Troy
Kojima
buying
level.
in on it is veiled hatred, though.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, no, I know. But the audience doesn't know that, Austin. We go over it.
It's true.
But I think if you had all these different messengers in there, that could be really cool. It could be this great little, I have no idea what that looks like.
You angling for a part, Troy? Do you want to jump in?
No, I think you have to philosophically exclude me. You have to. At no point can ever be a part of Solitary Conspiracy.
So genuinely, we actually do have an update coming out where we're adding a new crew in December, and I'm about to shoot the FMV for that with a new actor. So we're having different FMV actors coming in to do each of those.
It's weird because
we're doing
I
exactly
don't
what you're saying, basically.
see any.
Check your email, Austin. I'm sure it's in there. I haven't listened.
Must be an internet outage.
I feel. I won't say I feel hurt, but I definitely feel disappointed that I wasn't a part of last week. Like you guys. I want to know.
The grand political debate.
Yeah, I was like, normally it's like, all right, well, Troy's going to leave. So I guess we'll just go ahead and the rest of us can fuck off. And no, you guys are like, no, we're going to have our longest episode ever.
Now the work
Troy's gone. It's like, well, what the shit? So what did you're Stalin? Who's Stalin? I would say that Mike is Stalin. Austin Stalin?
I'm definitely Stalin.
You're Stalin.
I'm Stalin. It was really interesting. Like, if you ever want to see the Rorschach effect in reality, look at the comment section on that video, because it's people definitely like whatever worldview you came in with. You saw like villains and heroes based on that in the chat. Which was really interesting.
Actually, I will have to say though, to my
chagrin,
great happiness, it really no. Actually, I was very heartened to see that probably 80% of the reaction was just. I wish all political discussions were like this. It seemed overwhelmingly that people were just happy to see 2 people or 3 people sort of just exchanging ideas, and it wasn't instantly devolving into some, look, if you see the world that way, you're just evil and I can never communicate with you kind of thing. People overwhelmingly...
It helps that we're all like nice people. Like there was no awful one. There was no one in the room like actually asking for like a bad political, like a mean-spirited political stance. Like it wasn't... We didn't like... You or I weren't calling for something awful that the other ones had to stand up to. I think we were all being quite reasonable because we're all politically probably kind of floating around in a similar space, right? We're also people with similar life experiences, for example, so we're not gonna. There's not so much tension there as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, certainly, and that may be a blind spot, but it also may be a way to make it easier to discuss that stuff. But I also think the reality is that most people are in reality closer to each other than they think. But because people have a tendency to caricature, they drive a wedge more aggressively and farther just by virtue of the way they kind of straw man each other's positions and then very quickly, find themselves arguing with the positions that the opponent doesn't really have. And to be clear, I did not see us as really debating. It's because I didn't feel like I was throwing down on some proposition of like, it is this way. I went back and listened to the whole thing, and I certainly think I could have said a lot of things more clearly, because my main goal is to ask questions and to kind of provoke a response that I can then learn from and say, that exposes some lines of thought I hadn't considered, or I have a bias there that kind of blocked data that I wasn't aware of. But
it's those fun like 5-hour conversations, right? Where like, for me it was uni, it was like sitting in a dorm room with someone who just had a completely different life experience than me, just 5 hours of like, so explain why you think this, and like, but listening, that's the thing, is not arguing, but actually listening. Like, I had a really good friend in uni who was very religious, and I'm an atheist. So we would have these like 6-hour kind of conversations where like, we weren't trying to convert the other one, but we were definitely like prodding and trying to investigate each other's worldviews. And I think I learned a lot from those conversations. I'm still an atheist, but I learned a lot about kind of those perspectives.
I love that. I'm addicted to that kind of stuff.
I'm sure he hated me as a result. Like, obviously that was the.
Man.
I'm sure he prays for me. I think he was. I mean, he was a very strongly religious person living in this era, which is a very different time for someone who's got strong religious beliefs. So I think he probably also benefited from my arguments and my perspectives. So I think it was a really nice free flow of. I hope so. Yeah.
Which school?
Which school did I go to?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I went to Newport Uni in Wales. It's not an Augustus. It wasn't.
Well, then you can't. Don't never argue with the
honest.
Welsh. Never argue with the Welsh.
Well, I'm half Welsh, so I'm like.
That's what I'm saying. Never argue. I will never argue with half of you.
From the waist down.
I beseech the actual British part of you, and not the part that's in conflict with yourself. I'm
a mongrel.
I really that is podcast with this author Donald J. Robertson last week, and
stoked to listen to that.
Dude, you're stoked to listen to that. I've
mounted in the winds. Just
I've never had an opportunity to like finish a book and then literally sit down with the author and talk to him about it. Like that's like, it was a really rare opportunity, but just
how great would it be to do that with like the Old Testament?
Oh my God.
Sit down with God.
Have a chat with the author.
I would love to sit down. Moses goes, it was a poem. I wrote a fucking poem.
What's the Red Dwarf joke where they find the first page of the Bible? It says the events and characters in this book are based on the...
Dude, I
always think of that. I always think of that Family Guy, where he's doing the like thing behind his back where he's like da 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 da, and it's like, turns out people were a lot easier to impress back then.
Jesus was actually shorter than that. Okay, so I'm back here, spit out the gum.
But in my uni years, I learned how to respect people of different. I feel like we've
already developed.
We've already insulted.
Tell us about
the audience.
No, the reminder that those people exist in our lives, even if they have total oppositional views. And there's a lot of people that posted this week on Twitter and stuff talking about, if you feel this way, you are blocked. And I was like, that's like saying, if I'm going to get strong, I ain't going to the gym. And it's like, these people exist in your life to teach you how to be able to argue better, or by, God forbid that you actually learn empathy, because that is what is that is depleted to a deficient state in this whole world right now. It's just empathy.
Not just that, but you might be wrong.
Sure. And then there's that whole thing.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not. This is the Welsh part of you speaking right now. By the way.
Yeah, no, I meant Troy. I meant Troy might be wrong specifically.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
I want to be wrong. That's the main thing. Is if I'm right now with what I know, that sucks.
Like, why bother? Right at that point, you can just chill.
I hope that I'm trending right. But then, if I'm right, if I'm like, oh, I've figured it out, fuck. I don't want that at all. I want to be wrong about so many things. I don't want somebody else to come in and go, actually this, or confirm what I think to be right or to be true. And then I can go, oh, so it's that plus this. But if it's my position, that's it. That's fucking boring.
Especially because if you are sitting there content and confident in how right you are, the odds exponentially increase that you're not.
Yeah, dude.
It's laziness, right? It's a different form of laziness.
It's Magellan. Basically. That's like Catholic Church. We still got this. Like, no, pretty sure it's round. No.
Yeah,
you're blocked.
When we did
muted.
When we did Light in the Void, one of the things that we kept talking about was the whole almost spiritual beauty of the words "I don't know," and how it's a shame that we've kind of gotten to a place, and maybe this is just human nature. Maybe it's not that we've gotten here, but it's always been this way. That there's a real shame and a real self-consciousness with being proven wrong, which I've always seen the other way. I probably just because I was raised this way, but for me, the joy of being proven wrong comes from the fact that in that moment you are no longer wrong. That's why it's exciting. Like when you suddenly realize, hey, I was wrong. It's because you've been shown the right answer, and that's
a nice way of looking at it.
What could be better than that? You know what I mean? I think it's amazing. But how do you get there unless you have those conversations, unless you have those debates and that willingness?
Well, you need good faith. You need the other party to come at it in good faith. I think that's where it often goes wrong, is if you're talking to someone or discussing or debating and you don't feel comfortable in that conversation, or you feel that the other person is making bad faith arguments, it's very hard to arrive at that kind of comfort level, I guess. We're very fortunate that we like and respect each other. So whatever we said, the other ones would be like, I'm gonna take on good faith that like Mike misspoke there and he didn't actually mean the awful thing, or he's coming at it with a different perspective.
Austin saying politicians are subhuman.
Subhuman. I don't think they're human. That was one of my favorite lines.
You doubled down was the best bit of that. You were like, no, they are. Was it subhuman at best? That was. Was like,
no, I think you're right. Though I do think, like there's this moment I remember in Buffy, where Willow is like possessed and Xander keeps saying to her, I love you. And she hits him harder. And like, she's got this full demon energy going on and she's, cutting him open and there's blood and his clothes are all fucked up. And he says, Willow, I love you. And cause she's basically like this metaphor for an addict, right? She's become addicted to magic. And the more he leans in and just says, I'm here for you, the harder she hits, the harder he hits, but he keeps taking one step closer until eventually she's just pounding on his chest and collapses into a puddle of tears. And finally, he reaches her and is like, I am here for you. And yes, I know it's obviously it's poetic, and in a way it's the best case scenario for dealing with someone that is fundamentally on a different page from you in that moment. But when I look around and I see, yes, people should be approaching that in good faith, but the more we kind of radically empathize with people and say, like, just pause, take a breath, try again, instead of just throwing down the wall immediately and just saying, well, you're an asshole who I just will never relate to. Like, I really don't think the majority of people are not reachable. Even the most diehard. I mean, have you seen the?
Right, but it's a risk to reach them, right? Like, it's a risk. It takes some personal risk to reach out to those people. Like, especially like bad people, right? Like it's a tough. That's a tough thing. You've got to be in a position to do that. It's a risky endeavor.
Yeah, but I would argue that the number of people that are genuinely bad is pretty small. Now, I will say, in the context of this conversation that we had last week, I fully acknowledge that part of the subtext is I'm going in knowing that you and Alanah and Troy, this would hold true if you were there too.
Hopefully.
Is
hopefully. That's why we waited till he'd gone, Austin. Troy is
maybe.
Don't get him talking about politics, jeez.
I do recognize that I'm very, very eager to hear what you guys think, specifically because I know that the odds that you will have just simply never thought of an issue before but would then still feel compelled to just spout out a bunch of sort of off the cuff things is very low. Like if you challenge me, I'm immediately interested because I think, you know, they've arrived at this thoughtfully. They're not idiots and they're not uncaring and they're not, you know, blind to the world. I really would genuinely love to know the process that, even if we don't end up moving an inch. Sure. And I really, and again, that portrays it as though it was some contentious debate. In my mind, it really wasn't a debate at all. It was just conversation. But even if it had been, and even if no one moved, we're still the better for it, you know? I think. I love it. I learned, and I also, you know, some people sent me articles, podcasts, all kinds of stuff that you know, I think were resonating with what you were saying and said, hey, Austin, you should check out this. And I've got them all teed up here. I can't wait to dive in.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And I think that's similar for me as well, because I think often, I think there was definitely similarly, there was things I took away from that conversation that I honestly, and most of it was things I'd not thought about, like perspectives. I think we do, once we settle into a mode of thinking, we often don't challenge that. So it's always, I think it's always healthy. But I think there's definitely, it's not the role of all political conversations to be like that. I'm definitely on the side of like, no, some political conversations should be aggressive. Like some political conversations are difficult and the power dynamic is such that voices need to be raised. But that's not what this is. That's not what this group is. That's not what we do here. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that all of them should be like that. So I'm always very cautious about that. So I know that's not what you were saying. I just wanted to kind of put that.
You know what this group is, though? This group is...
What's this group?
The four of us.
Hey!
I suck at intros, man.
Good timing.
You know what's funny is having this conversation has taught me so much. Even just this conversation. In this conversation, I have learned that there's a button I can push.
We are semi-functional without Alanah.
Yeah, there's a button I can push.
We're very self-indulgent without Alanah. We just do post-game on our last conversation for half an hour.
You're stepping on my joke.
I apologize.
I discovered that there's a button I can push that means I don't record all of the audio and I just record mine.
Nice. Good thing we are independently recording then.
Yeah, but
that's how the magic happens.
Amazing, incredible. I love that.
But if it's my audio, you're gonna hear all of it. So
beautiful.
You just have fun with that.
The last time that happened, it was very popular.
I think
I just want to make one last little closing comment on the whole sort of in good faith, can you reach people that are fundamentally on a different wavelength as you? There's just a documentary I would love to recommend that's called Accidental Courtesy. Have any of you guys heard of this?
Nope, but I'll check it out.
So there's this musician named Daryl Davis, this black guy, who basically went to KKK rallies and just over the course of decades befriended people and one by one convinced many, many, many of these people to get rid of their robes. And he was like, I will win these people over with kindness, and I will be very non-judgmental with them, and we'll just open our hearts to each other. And this is a guy going to KKK rallies and meetings and stuff.
Now that's a risk, right? That's taking a risk.
Hell yeah.
You know, that's
for him, it was a hobby. He's a gigging musician. There are like dozens, I can't remember the number, but there's a non-trivial number of people that basically renounced the KKK. And sometimes it's after long relationship, you know, it's not like they meet him and 10 minutes later they go, whoa, my God, I've been so blind. It's like, they're like, hey, you're pretty cool, but you know, yeah, exactly. And to me, he represents, it's like, that's the best of us, right? That is the absolute pinnacle of hey.
Hi, I tried this took me a long time so that I could make this specific goof.
Hey,
oh
there it
shit!
is.
What a great pull.
There it is.
But it's not as cool when I have to announce it. But I was like, I need to go on Google Maps and I need to find the image and I need to make sure.
I bet you that image has been.
People who own that company are okay. I hope the people who own that company aren't getting like massive review bombs and awful stuff.
I feel like it's probably beneficial for them overall.
Yes. But yeah,
I know who they are now. If I ever go to Philly and I need landscaping or whatever, that's where I'm going.
Right. You're right on the cusp of that need.
Hi everyone. I'm late because I was in a meeting that pertains to my new job, which I get to announce on Monday. I officially am allowed to announce it on Monday, so everyone wait until Monday.
Awesome.
What have you guys been chatting about?
It's actually a landscaping position, as we're
Oh,
learning.
yeah.
Very excited.
Well, this is a new office.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
first
that's-
event was super weird, by the way.
Huge,
I'm an events
though,
coordinator for the Four Seasons Landscaping Company.
Very
man.
big for me. What have you guys been chatting about?
Oh man, just all the shit that I missed last week with the
All the politics
different...
stuff from last week.
Yeah.
Very cool. I guess I'll just jump in here and introduce the show then. Hi, everyone. I'm Alanah. That's Troy. That's
Nope.
Mike. And
Oh, this is
that's
so
Austin.
much fun.
I even screwed it up.
This
Isn't
is
it
fun
Alanah.
every time?
This is Austin, and that is Mike. I did it. Bam. I just have to
I
record
think that
Zoom.
means
That's how we do
you
it.
Indication.
are in
This
my
is how
spot.
we do it.
Except
Oh,
that
good
both of
call.
yours were 3 out of 3 wrong from my perspective.
From your perspective, and your perspective is wrong. Reported, deleted, blocked.
That's really the
We did
Troy
learn-
Baker
we did
way.
learn as
Is
much.
if there's anything that I know about Troy is that he frequently says your perspective is wrong, deleted, blocked.
Yeah,
It's
right.
really,
Yeah,
It's his
it's
whole
really
vibe.
his
It's-
MO.
That's kind of my brand, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the tombstone.
Yeah.
Blocked.
Clearly. Oh my god.
So I was gonna say, Austin, the Pathless. You just sent us some of the review scores, and it looks like it's doing real well. But it also comes out
People
this
liking it.
week.
Comes out, Thursday. It will. I guess when this is live, it will have come out yesterday. Yeah, very excited. I didn't actually know until yesterday that the review embargo would lift today, and even then, I had forgotten until I just got tagged on Twitter. Someone, the tweet I sent you guys of someone who had compiled a few of the scores, just tagged me, and I was like, "Oh right, that's today." And
So ultimately,
was
very
excited.
different approaches between you and Mike. Then, who knew exactly when his reviews were going up and was waiting for them. You were just kind of like got tagged on Twitter.
I got distracted. I was waiting for it in the back of my head, but yeah, needless to say, my Slack with the team was, not that one refreshes Slack, but I'm refreshing Slack to see. And I know that Games Radar in particular seemed to really resonate with the game and really respond to it, and felt, and it looks like from reading it that they saw what I would say Giant Squid really was trying to do. You know, a lot of the things about the game where it's this intersection between something that's really fun and very gamey and like driven by a very kind of kinetic and tactile sense with the archery and the movement and the momentum of it. You know, it's not a platformer, but just the sheer joy of like experiencing something that gathers energy and gathers momentum like that. But at the same time, it's also very kind of impressionistic and meditative, and the open world is very deliberately open, for lack of a better way to put it. There's no map, there's no real UI. The whole point is to explore it as almost one would in real life, where you just walk around and explore and walk around
That's
and
the
fly
aspect
around.
I'm intrigued by. That's the bit I want to play, because I do feel, I think I've said this on Twitter, but it's definitely something that's on my mind, is like we are so close to like open world becoming like an indie explorable space for all of us. So like the first few pioneers, including you guys, it's really interesting to me to see indie scale teams and mid scale teams kind of really trying to explore that, because it's a whole design paradigm that feels like it's just becoming available to our end of things, which is really exciting.
How so, Mike?
A few things. Well, as is usually the case with indie, it's becoming easier and cheaper to do, so we're able to do
Right.
it. That's ultimately what it is. So there's the big ones are the improvements in streaming on the new hardware, means that you don't have to. Half of the genius of like a GTA game under the hood, technically, is just keeping the environment in front of you, rendering all of that stuff that's on the horizon, bringing stuff in, loading assets, unloading assets. That's teams of very expert coders. As the streaming becomes easier, basically I have to be less clever, my team has to be less clever, which means that it becomes more available to us at a lower budget. That's the big one. But then I think just design-wise, it feels like the audience is understanding a breadth of open world in a way that makes it more accessible. So what Austin's saying in terms of
Happens all the time.
it happens, you look exactly the same. That's why Troy wears the hat, is to just allow us some visual differentiation.
And thank God.
just-
It doesn't work on a
Yeah.
podcast, but it's useful for this. But like
Otherwise.
what
Have
you're
any
doing,
hat nearby.
what you guys are doing versus what Ghost of Tsushima does versus what I'm playing Watch Dogs at Legion at the moment. Like, they're completely different games, and the way they're using open world is diverse enough that what I'm hoping is that continues to expand, and it just opens up more space for those of us at the lower budgets to kind of do cool things. And it looks like what you guys, I mean, by no means it's not a plucky indie team, is it? It's like a kind of one of the larger scale indie teams, but it's still like a massive difference in scale between you guys and the AAA. So it's exciting. It's very exciting.
It's the Giant Squid's kind of in that middle zone. I mean, a lot, basically quite a few of Annapurna titles are, where they're made by sizable teams, but it's nothing compared to, CD Projekt
and
Red.
I'm not belittling the achievement. It's genuinely amazing what's been done there, and it looks like the reviews are honoring that. So that's great. Congratulations to you and everyone. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, I'm owed effectively none of that accolade, but I happily.
The Plinky Plonk. You did the Plinky Plonk. You did the.
Did a little bit of this.
Tickle the ivories. A little bit of that magic.
Can I just? I want to say something that before he just diminishes his contribution to that game.
Yeah.
I have listened to many of, I wouldn't say all of, because it's huge, but like most of Austin's scores for games I've listened to. Abzu is like, you want to talk about something deeply meditative, like that's just one that you can just put on and chill, and I could easily hear that at a spa. Like it's beautiful. Journey, of course, is seminal. Assassin's Creed. I just started playing Syndicate again. Speaking of Watchdog Legions, we were doing this thing where we were racing because they're both 1-to-1.
One of you was in Old London, one is in New London. That's right.
Yeah, and Austin was like, "Hey, why am I not a part of this?" I was like, "You will be the first thing." And I realized the thing that I hate
makes
about
me
Assassin's
sound so
Creed,
incredibly petty.
I was like, "Man, fuck it!" I forgot about what happens when you're like running at a dead sprint towards something in Assassin's Creed. The world goes no, and it just puts up this milky wall of "fuck you." Like, God. So anyway, those are playing Watch Dogs Legion.
It's you gotta get pretty far out of the center before.
I can show you exactly how far you can get. Like, you start off in Whitechapel, and then I was trying to get to, and I had opened up a lot of, and I'm pretty familiar.
You can't go to Wales,
Strand.
I'm annoyed. My old flat is like one block outside of Watchdog Legion, and I was so annoyed I couldn't go up to my old flat. That really annoyed me.
That same thing happened to me when LA Noire came out. I was so excited to drive to my current apartment at the time, and it was, like the edge of the map basically went right into Los Feliz where I was living, and it just shy, dude, and it drove me nuts.
During LA Noire times, it was like there was a movie. I'll get back to your compliment in a second. There was a movie, I can't remember which one it was.
I'm deliberately trying to derail you out of awkwardness.
That was talking about we got to go, over the LA River into the country, into Burbank, and I was like, man.
Oh, that was the Ruben Fleischer movie.
Yes.
I remember watching that, and the guy goes, "I always knew I would die in Burbank," or whatever.
Yeah. What movie was that?
It's is that called?
It's the one with Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I'll tell you.
God damn it! What is his name?
I can't remember.
He's an Oscar winner now. He's also a fuck. Sean Penn. Sean Penn plays the bad guy. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Still got
it's driving me nuts. It wasn't a huge hit, but it was. I remember that exact line sticking out as well, where they treated it like a cross country drive to go from LA to Burbank.
Every time someone says that phrase, by the way, all I think about is the terrible joke about the Irishman with the steering wheel in his pants, and someone says, "What is that?" He goes, "It's driving me nuts." Anyway,
you goddamn dad.
That's a terrible joke. I admitted it. I gave you
Squad.
fair warning.
Gangster Squad. That's what it was called.
So, what was it?
Gangster Squad.
Gangster Squad. Yeah.
Ruben
Terrible
Fleischer,
movie.
Sean Penn.
Terrible movie.
Josh Brolin.
Terrible movie.
After every
Glad we're
cast
talking
member,
about it.
Ryan Gosling.
Terrible movie.
Does sound pretty bad.
Is it
Great
not good?
actor.
I saw that. That came up on my Netflix.
Don't watch it. It's not good.
You see, people said that about Motherless Brooklyn, but then I really enjoyed Motherless Brooklyn, and everyone hated that. So I think maybe I just don't have good enough taste for like period Americana. I think
it's
like
just
it regardless.
I think it's just like if you want to watch that, go watch like L.A. Confidential or one of
Right.
and innumerable others that are of a similar.
Can we still watch it? Because I love that movie. Rollo
Because of
Tomasi.
Mr. Spacey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Although
It is
here's
weird.
the
I
thing.
watched Baby Driver earlier, which is the same problem where it's like, oh,
Can you watch
At least
K-Pax?
there's
Does anybody
a
want to watch
villain in
K-Pax
that.
anymore?
why would you want to catch? Why would you want to watch K-Pack?
Here's the thing. Spacey's character in L.A. Noire is, in a way,
LA
he
Confidential.
plays like L.A. Confidential.
Yeah, I was like,
plays-
he's in LA Noire? That would have been expensive. Is that why the studio got shut down?
Well, we had him in
He,
Call of Duty, and that you see how well that did for that
R.I.P..
game. So
He plays like the sleazy Hollywood guy. Funny enough, like he.
Can I posit my theory?
Hmm.
please.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you massively, Austin. I'm so sorry. I've got a theory that Kevin Spacey was never a good actor, and we just assumed he was because we assumed he was a good person. If you look at Kevin, yes, here we go, right? Because I saw Baby Driver earlier today. I was just watching with the commentary is really good with Edgar Wright. Every Kevin Spacey performance is I'm a creepy, awful, untrustworthy bad guy.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Oh my God. Outbreak.
No?
Oh my God. Outbreak. Will you please just hold my hand? Ugh. Come
Okay, fair
on.
enough. That disproves the theory. I
do think you are largely right that he played like shitty, sleazy dudes, though.
duplicitous, unpleasant, sleazy.
He
people.
became almost a character of himself once he started doing roles like that. People were like, ooh, he plays a really good
Yeah, because he's
bad
really
guy.
good at it because it came naturally to him. That's
Wonder
the thing,
why,
that's my point.
exactly.
Yeah,
right.
that's kind of the.
I
Yeah,
gotta
exactly. That's what
say-
I was saying. He's sort of.
He's
Here's
good
the
at playing
deal.
liars.
He's
I think I would have trouble watching something Spacey's
Here-
in, but like
herein
obviously
lies the
everyone
danger.
has their intolerance.
herein lies the danger. It's easy to demonize the devil.
Yes.
I
Would have
see
thought
the
devil
horns.
Did it to himself.
I see the pitchfork. That's bad. It's what is harder and what has taken such a shift in specifically this industry being Hollywood, and even in all of the other industries where this systemic misogyny, racism, everything else is, he's such a nice guy. Come on, it's fine. And that's the problem. Kevin Spacey, his work ethic is second to none. That guy was an incredible.
Not getting so many opportunities for work at the moment, though, is he?
No, but I mean, he was an incredible performer. There's a story that he showed up late, and the director basically taught him a lesson. And Kevin Spacey could have easily said, "Do you know who I am?" And he didn't. He was like, "You're absolutely right," and he was never late again. So I have anecdotes of that guy being a good dude. He was affable. He was funny as fuck. He's a hilarious person. That's the danger. The danger is, but he's such a nice guy.
Well, that's the outfit someone like that assumes, presumably, right? Like that's
Right.
the.
It's
So
the
you-
frequency
Plain
at which
sight.
we find out about the kind of things that someone like Kevin Spacey would doing, and we go, that guy? No, but I feel like that happens almost every time. Like it's
Right,
so
yeah.
uncommon that you find out that someone's a pedophile, and you're like, no, actually, that checks out. Like I don't think we ever assume that of people. So it is often that
The British have to
Jeffrey,
accept Jimmy
Well,
Savile was a bit of an obvious one in retrospect. Like Jimmy Savile.
because didn't
was
he
one of
like
those ones
defend
where-
it for years before it came out?
Jeffrey
Jimmy
Jones.
Savile died before there were any complaints about him in the public sphere. I think there
Oh.
were rumors in the tabloid
might be
press or
thinking of
whatever,
someone
but
else.
like no, it was genuinely surprising. And then you see an image of Jimmy Savile, and you're like, no, that's like a cartoon character of a paedophile. That's why did you not spot that? That's so obvious in retrospect. But I guess again, that's a similar thing, right? Of like, if you play the clown, it's the same vibe. It's still, you can hide in plain sight.
It's all.
I
of
mean,
those
that's
that,
literally Gacy. He's a serial killer who dressed as a
Who
clown.
dressed up like a
It's
clown.
literally, yeah.
What I'm saying is that I'm by no means defending, nor am I even litigating all of those allegations. I'm just simply saying that this is how we began this conversation of like, it's easy to have someone who says, I am a clear-cut blank. And you're like, well, there's no argument to be had there. There's no debate. The danger lies in being able to go, man, he's such a nice guy. And that's where the entanglement comes. And I do believe, look, like, that's why I like to just go, I've fucked up, man. I've messed up and I've made a mistake here, and just own it, own it, own it, own it, own it. So that there's just at least a level of transparency.
I don't know that works with pedophilia.
No, it doesn't.
I hope
It doesn't
not.
go, all
think
right,
it's-
I made a mistake. Sorry
That's
about
my
that.
bad.
That's my bad.
See,
It's
no.
but
Yeah,
it's
not so
the
much.
I want people to understand that I'm flawed. I want people to understand that I make mistakes, but it's when someone gets wrapped up in, but yeah, but there's this and he does this. It's like, man, we should look at Roman Polanski. There's like a whole list of people that we still venerate. Woody Allen, you know, because
bring him up too.
as a playwright, as a film director, as a writer, it's just like I
It's
can't-
weird that he does seem immune to it. It does seem that Woody Allen's like. It's weird that he still gets to like be around. That's strange.
Yeah.
That's very strange.
The thing that I'm curious about, I'm always interested in.
This is the weirdest compliment to Austin ever, by the way.
This is
Like,
the
we-
strangest
Yeah,
compliment.
we'll get
by the way,
back
would be
there.
like, thank you, everybody. Oh, by the way,
We'll get
Austin's
back
You
to
great
can
stuff.
seem like a nice guy, but then you meet Austin Wintory.
Yeah,
terrible.
right. I love.
It's a hell of a build up. That's all I'm saying.
I love
It's a hell of a
interweaving discussions of music with pedophilia and like
The thing
putting-
is, when you listen to the Assassin's Creed Syndicate soundtrack,
What's up with GameSpot? Oh, by the way, pedophilia. It's like, here are the connections. No,
Amazing.
my God.
anyway, I'm not digging myself out of this hole. This is the hole I squarely placed this in. This is what happens, Alanah, when you
have
let
to
me
own
record
it.
the Zoom.
I know. It's
I
true.
don't own
Many
it.
regrets. Austin, go ahead.
Well, I was just, you know, the thing that the only part of what you said that pings, I agree that of all the things that a human can do that are just truly horrible, pedophilia is in a way, it's almost, I could see the point that it's in a way worse than murder.
Yeah.
Because basically somebody lives their life with a deep scar that in a way death would have been a release from. Now I know
I think
I'm
it's
super-
okay to just place the top 5 and not worry about their order.
about the ranked choice voting of
I think,
So,
the top 5 crimes we can just put in a blob and say those are bad and not have to.
I was reading a study
mitigate
about
them.
what the top 3 things that mankind have no forgiveness for are, which is obviously a generalization, but the 3 things that supposedly we have a very difficult time ever forgiving someone for.
console exclusivity.
Console exclusivity is number 1.
God damn, the mic
it's
is on a roll.
pedophilia,
Violence against
pedophilia,
animals.
incest,
It's
and
really?
cannibalism.
What?
Yeah. Those are the top 3 that
guess
apparently
those
we're
make
just like, if you
sense.
know someone who does
Then
that,
you're
you're
like,
just
can't
like,
come back
that's
from
fucked
that.
up.
I can't be friends with.
I can't be friends. It's like, dude, I had such a great time with Dan, man. He's like, you know, he ate somebody in the woods once. What? It's like, dude, we go fishing like every weekend. It's like, yeah, dude, Dan, like,
Do you remember
He ate a-
Steve?
he ate a
Yeah, he's
guy.
not
He
around
ate
anymore.
somebody.
That was the guy. Yeah.
well,
ate
and
a
there's
whole
never
dude.
like a well, contextualize it for me. It's never like, well, what do you mean he like? Was he alive when he ate? There's never a follow up. It's just like, oh,
What were the
can't- I can't-
circumstances?
I'm
Yeah,
never gonna
I
see
Was he
watched-
Dan
starving?
again.
Still,
watched
like,
a
even
live-
if you...
Yeah.
Doesn't
Even if you
matter.
were starving to death and there was another human, you'd still be like, you ate the guy?
That's
You
why
were
like,
I
starving
the-
in
actually
the woods?
that
the
one
whole-
actually
the
disconnects
whole
with me
heroic
then as a
thing-
result.
with the whole heroic thing where they're like, you know, listen, man, if I die, I want you to eat me. It's like, why? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be the asshole that ate somebody on the mountain.
Because I was
Death
listening to
is
this podcast
superior.
one time.
I would literally rather die.
Then be a
I do
cannibal.
like as well how you slipped into Joel there for that whole.
It's very
Part of the
fitting.
outtakes, he's accidentally reveling a rejected
That's
Neil
the third
Druckmann
game,
line.
yeah.
You eat me.
I want you to eat me.
Don't let me survive this. Oh, because then there's so many mental questions that follow. Two people are like, what did you start with? Like, what did you?
Did you attempt bugs first, or did you just go straight
Yeah, was
for
there
a-
like? Did you go? Is there any vegetation up there? Were
don't
there
you
any
start- I
animals?
feel like-
Did
There
you
must be
cook
some
it? I
people in
don't.
the world who are waiting for the opportunity, right? They're like, I don't want to do it, but if it comes up,
but
Every time they go on a cruise, they're
guys
hoping
were
that the
gone
whole
for a
thing will
weekend.
devolve into.
like it was just you were kind of like.
Oh.
That reminds me of
That was
an
12
old,
hours. I don't know that you were starving.
There was
what's
exactly
the
there was an
title of
Onion
this
headline.
episode gonna be?
There was an Onion
Again,
headline.
I tried to talk about video games. I tried. I came in here and I was like, the pathless. And then here we fucking are.
By the way, this whole thing started off by me wanting to give Austin a compliment, by the way. I want to remind everybody about
Let's
that.
roll back to it.
Never
Let's roll
again.
Back to it.
Yeah, I do think
Pay the
Austin deserves the
compliment.
compliment.
Pay the compliment.
No, I
Austin's been
think
waiting
we've
very patiently for it.
ascended
Troy,
to a
can you
higher
compliment
plane
Austin?
here, clearly.
Troy?
Troy,
Huh?
Troy, are you going to compliment Austin?
stage is yours.
No, because I don't know what we're going to talk about next.
It's true. It opens
gonna
the
avoid
floodgates
it.
to
It
The
has.
compliment
insanity.
was this. I have heard almost.
You had to eat anyone.
I've definitely listened to Austin's greatest hits. He sent me the in credits cue for the Pathless.
This is one you actually, I think, could call a song if you like.
It is a song.
Yeah. Well, we have that. That's a discussion that you guys may not be aware. The majority of what I write are not songs, but all pieces of music to the layman, as it were,
tunes.
are songs.
I say cues.
Yeah.
Like that's a cue. Like you're doing this cue, you're doing this cue. I've learned to not say
Ditties.
themes because if Austin could
Ditties.
go,
I do prefer ditties.
ditties. Please,
Good ditty,
please let there be some
ditty
like
smith.
weird glitch in subtitles if somebody is trying to watch this. It's just, I do prefer. And what was the last episode?
I
Well, Troy
create
started off by
ditties.
recording it, and there was audio issues, of course, because Troy. The
audio guy.
But the end credits song for the Pathless, there's been a few moments where I'm like, I know this person. Like this is a friend of mine. Like you've heard, it's not a surprise to hear these caliber of songs in films, TV, or even games. But you don't know that person. You know, nobody really knows. They're just a hermit that lives up on a mountain and occasionally just shits out amazingness.
You're like, I know that hermit.
I know that person, and like there's been a few times where I feel that way, where I'm like, man, I know who that. Like I should know who that is. It is incredible, not only just from the caliber of song, but it's stuck in my head for days afterwards. So you should absolutely finish the game too, and regardless of whatever you think of the game, which I think it's
once
brilliant.
someone sends me a key, I'm going to check it out. But
I buy
Yeah,
games.
that'd be cool.
you buy games because you support your friends.
I
Yeah,
support
no,
my
okay,
friends.
fine.
So
I mostly wishlist them
I
because I,
don't
get
think that
browbeaten
I'm
into
better.
it.
I do wish list them.
I do now.
You should wishlist
do
them.
now.
Wishlisting's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Austin, how long is it?
The game?
Yeah.
The it's funny because I had a hard time gauging that since it's pretty flexible, obviously, between how much you explore and how much you just try to kind of follow the narrative beats. It looked like one of the reviews made a passing reference to them needing about 7 hours. I think that's probably
beautiful.
a pretty fair median.
Love to see it. Love to see
It's
it.
not
That sounds
super
like a good
long.
size
It's
for an
not
open world
shallowly.
experience,
Yeah. It doesn't gloss past. To your point, Mike, earlier about the sort of attainability of open world, that was a really cool thing to watch during development because the game, if you walk from one corner of the map to the other, it would take you a good long while. You know, it is not a small open world. I mean, there are, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey was noteworthily gigantic in its open world. It's not that size, obviously. But
I was just thinking that's such a good headline in the conversation we were having about like open world games getting more accessible, and then we derailed it. I was like, that would have been beautiful, but fucking here we are. Sorry, go ahead, Austin.
this is what happens
if you
when you don't
cannibalize someone
set the
at one end
set the
of the
tone
map.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
No, but I think one thing that was so cool was that they designed the tech where they basically were able to make a first draft of the world procedurally, where they essentially just built this framework where they could hit a button and then bam, our island is made. And then
That's often how AAA do it as well. I think people don't realize how much procedural generation's in an Assassin's Creed or a game like that. Like, it's pretty...
Ow.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to derail. We'll come back to that. Austin was making another point.
no. I want to hear more.
How is it procedural generation in Assassin's Creed?
I would think you can't in Assassin's Creed, right?
So I think the big the big thing with procedural generation is people equate procedural generation with randomization and with user-facing procedural generation. So like you load.
I
up
think
and
of
it's different every
asset
time.
creation or content creation. Like if something's procedurally generated, my actions equal content or assets in the game.
Right, so exactly, you think it's reactive to you, but actually procedural generation doesn't necessarily mean that. It can just mean basically anything where you let the computer do some placement for you. So for example,
you probably would procedurally generate anything you would climb on in an Assassin's Creed game.
Well, you'd start. So what they often do with open world, and I mean I think this has been the case forever with Ubisoft. It's Ghost of Tsushima is like very massively procedurally generated in a way that I find incredibly instructive and interesting. But like
how? What?
Troy's making faces. Okay, so I think it's a terminology thing. There's a way procedural generation has been communicated to consumers, which is No Man's Sky, roguelikes, kind of infinite content, right? But all procedural generation means is the computer kind of does the legwork for you. So, for example, every time you've seen a blade of grass in a video game, the design, a level designer didn't go in and just place every piece of grass. What they said was this area should have grass in it, and then the computer jumps in. That is a very stupid, low-level version of procedural generation.
And then when I interact with it, then the world responds to me and says, no, we're going to generate at a higher LOD, right? Or LOF. What is it called?
Well, that's where it gets interesting with something like Ghost of Tsushima, because that world is so largely forest-driven. That's why one of the reasons the loading times are so good in Ghost of Tsushima is it doesn't load with procedural generation. You don't have to load 1,000 blades of grass. You have to load one blade of grass and the algorithm that decides how grass is placed, and you can generate it at runtime. You don't have to ship the cupcake. You have to ship the recipe for the cupcake and the ingredients, which is easier. So it's the computer does a lot of the building at runtime. Now, what's with open worlds, and this varies from team to team, so maybe my examples will be wrong, but like something like Assassin's Creed, you can start by doing what Austin's describing, where you basically go, we're going to generate a city, and it will just be big grey cubes, and it won't look very nice. But that lets the designers start building stuff, working out how tall buildings should be, how nice the jump should feel, how close together things. Lets you play in that space, and then once that's done, that procedurally generated city can then be handed to your 300 artists to make it look gorgeous. But it's we as developers, we constantly use procedural generation in the process. Every time you see a particle effect, it's not like they've animated individual sprites in that particle effect. The computer does a lot of the heavy lifting. And yes, what Austin's saying makes sense. Where I see really interesting progress in the future, and I think Ghost of Tsushima kind of points the way, is allowing more of the design process to be handled by procedural generation, which again frees up time, which means your team can be smaller. If you look at Ghost of Tsushima's development team, watch those end credits again. It is not an enormous number of people. Similar with Horizon Zero
No, I
Dawn.
think they're the smaller of all of the studios. I think they
For
have
sure.
less than.
This is going back
and that's
to
not that's not cheating. That's a really clever way of making games, and the audience doesn't seem to mind. But obviously you get different things out of a Ghost of Tsushima than you do from a Watch Dogs, which is a very different kind of game. And
one of my
requires more
favorite
people.
open worlds ever. Like that Ghost of Tsushima's
Tsushima,
open
I
world
loved
is
it. And
beautiful.
the ending was so good.
Hold on,
Like,
because I'm
I
not there. I'm not
finished it like a
there.
week
I'm not there.
ago.
I'm not there.
No, I'm not
Oh,
going
yeah, I
to
won't
spoil
spoil
it.
it.
But like,
But
I was
I do
surprised
wanna
by
play-
how touched I was by that. That was amazing.
I do want to play the co-op. I will also say, because I know
Oh my god, the
Austin wants to
multiplayer is
comment.
so cool.
Okay.
Really?
Sorry.
I just want to
Sorry.
Good, Troy.
Really good
Play it,
game,
Troy.
sorry.
The thing that I feel this is a moment for me, and then Austin, I know you want to comment on this, but the thing that I want to point out, because Alanah, know you have like 5 minutes. This is one of those moments where I'm glad that I'm wrong. Like we were talking about at the very, very beginning, the notion that now that I know that I'm wrong, I have the opportunity to be more right, because I wasn't like fully wrong. I was trending towards right, but being able to have a conversation and go, wait a minute, you and I disagree on something. I think procedurally generated is this. You're like, let me actually show you how you're not wrong, but there's also right plus. And I'm going to show you what right plus is. Now I learn
There's
more.
a lot of
what
things
I-
where developer terms are different to consumer terms, right? Like buzzwords
Yeah.
have been used for an audience, but it's used differently internally. Yeah.
But it's more important to me to have a conversation. If I'm
Both
talking to a
about.
developer and be able to say, hey, listen, man, I understand that what we really want to do is have more procedurally generated content, for them to go, that's not really what that word means. But okay, now I know where you're at. I want to be able to go, yeah,
can be
it's
used
like
as a genre, kind of. So
right. I want to be able to have a
And
better,
then
more
neither.
informed conversation.
Well, that's
with
want to be
developers.
clear. I'm not being elitist here. Like both readings are valid. It's just that you can, by understanding the different uses in different places, you can, as you say, arrive at more interesting outcomes. But it's not that you're wrong. It's just
There's
used
right
differently by
plus.
different crowds.
and multiple, right? Yeah,
There's right
yeah.
plus.
I have for years tried to disentangle because procedural generation in music is also a thing, and there is very often that term is used as a placeholder for interactive music because they basically think anything that's broken down into a bunch of little tiny bite-sized granular bits is now procedural. And I'm like, but these are all still bespoke, fragments of audio. All we're doing is shipping the instruction manual for how to reassemble it and take it apart again. Like my very first ever score was Flow. That's a score that's consisting of like thousands of individual pieces of audio that are being stitched together as the player just kind of drifts through the gameplay. But I never thought of it as procedural because then I looked at actual procedural content, procedural generation, where, there's like basically the equivalent of a hardware synth baked into the programming of it, where it is literally authoring music in real time. That's procedural. But and to be clear,
Well, my point is both are. Like, procedural is... I read a really good book on the subject by Tanya Short, by several people, but she was one of the editors. And in the intro, I think they referred to it as procedural generation is like simultaneously the most stupid but the most talented intern you could hire. It's a helper. Like, it can do No Man's Sky, but it can also just kind of grab your coffee. You know what I mean? And
Have you
choose
seen...
your level of engagement. And both are valid uses.
Have you seen procedurally generated YouTube videos? Some of
Is this the kind of
most
children's
watched,
where they'll have
yes, horrific.
the weird stuff, right?
Some of,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like basically people are using bots to make these kids videos under the understanding of kids like loud noises and they like cartoon characters they can recognize. And then they just let a bot make the video, meaning it is maybe procedurally generated isn't even the right word for that, but then they upload it, gets billions of views. But when you watch it, you're like, what is this doing to our kids? Like,
Dude.
they're like Clockwork Orange, bizarre, like just like displays of noises and characters that don't make any sense whatsoever and have billions of views on children's channels. It's so
If I
Also,
may
this
just-
is a procedurally generated YouTube video. The fact that the yellow borders surrounding the speaker, that is the computer is choosing that. Alanah, well, now Troy, of course, the new director of the show, isn't placing where that yellow rectangle is. But also just in terms of the compression, the computer isn't... Austin's webcam isn't bothering to send the shape of those squares behind those diamonds on his wall every time because they're staying static. So the computer is reconstructing those. So there is procedural generation, arguably, in everything. But you're right, that's a very front-forward procedural generation. But the second Troy says something and the yellow rectangle goes to him, this is procedurally generated content to some degree. We have a shit intern who is moving the yellow rectangle around, and game development is about knowing where you
they're
can
doing
and can't use
fine.
those things.
I think
Shit
he's
on the
doing a
yellow
great job.
The yellow square intern.
Yeah, dude.
I just
That's
want
true,
to clarify that the Pathless is definitely not in the No Man's Sky sense of procedural an open world. It is very much a bespoke, crafted thing. What they did is they used this very clever technique of basically letting the computer make the first pass and then went in placing just an ungodly number of individual little things. But it was to make the
They
island
had
from
more
scratch,
time to do that, right? That's
spent
the other
all
thing we
their
have
time
to explain
doing
to
that.
players. Players have to realize this. That's not that team's not being lazy by using procedural generation for some of the steps. It's freeing up its time so that they can. I've mentioned on the podcast before. My very first job in the industry that I used to have to spend 75% of my working day on is now a button in Unity. Like my first job is now procedurally generated. I made nav meshes, which it doesn't matter what they are, but they now a button in Unity. That means that anyone entering the industry now gets to do much more interesting shit than I did when I first started. And I think that's that's the big thing here. These are time savers. They're not laziness. They are about giving you more time to do the good stuff.
Very
yeah,
quickly.
that's the thing. I don't think the game would have been possible if they'd had to make every detail of the island from scratch. The team's not large enough, the budget wasn't, but they were able to short circuit the super labor intensive, tedious part and focus on the artistry. Go, Troy.
Very quickly, because I know Alanah needs to go. Just Mike, I have a question for you. would you say that there's a difference? Like procedurally generated may be a misnomer when actually what people mean is emergent. Like there's a difference between emergent content versus procedurally generated content. Like if I go and I create a new game mode out of GTA because I'm trying to break the game, or I can do this thing, that's not procedurally generated content. That is emergent gameplay. Is that more accurate?
Or user generated?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah, there's different. There's. I mean, I've heard like 5 or 6 different nomenclatures, which will be in the comments. But like, yeah, there's definitely like player facing procedural generation and like development tool procedural generation. But there's also, as you say, like user generation. At what point does the person who's made that GTA mode that's just about breaking GTA? At what point are we actually doing them a disservice by giving the procedural generation credit? They've gone and done something. They've made something transformative. They've created something new there. So it's all very messy and hazy and interesting and exciting.
I'm glad I learned something today.
Yeah,
I did.
Very cool.
I learned that I should probably not be in charge of recording video.
You watched, and you listened.
I did. I played, I watched, I listened.
I just wanted to ask, did everyone see the bit of the video where Troy plays piano beautifully, but none of us could hear it because Zoom
so great.
Oh my
edited it out?
god!
Yeah,
I found that so funny. None of us heard it, so we didn't react to it. And then I heard it in the audio, and I was like, "This is incredible." And
can he play us out now? Can he play us out now? Can we give him that moment with us sitting adorably
if we can hear it,
enjoying it? Oh, that's amazing. Oh, it is. No, I can hear it. That's awesome.
I heard a sound. There we go.
It makes no sense that we couldn't hear this before.
Now Austin, join him. I'm serious.
You have too much power, Mike Bithell. It's too much power.
That was nice.
Play Watch Listen is played before 4 people and a shit intern.
I think he's doing a great job.